Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. Whether you have called this place your spiritual home for decades or only a few weeks, welcome. Perhaps this is the first time you have bravely ventured into this physical space, or maybe you are from the safety of your home, giving this experience a try via live stream. If you are new here but not in person, please let us know if you have questions. You can send a message to our Welcome Ministries coordinator, Hannah Hotchkiss, hannah@uuaa.org. And if you are here, we hold an in-person newcomer welcome after each service, just through these doors, up a little ways and on the right. There'll be a sign to direct you and someone in the room to help answer your questions. Wherever you are, thank you for trusting us for this coming hour. I'm Reverend Theresa Rohlck. I'm your Congregational Chaplain and the Director of the Handbell Choir. I'm joined by Reverend Cassandra Hartley, our Executive Minister, the Chalice Bells, our Pianist-in-Residence, Allison Halerz, a soloist today, Olivia Bassett-Kennedy, our technology consultant, Mike Halerz, and Beth Hosparaduk will be talking to us in a moment as well. As November has arrived, so has the morning frost, the wind that is blowing leaves off of tree branches, and even the wet snow falling early. It means that our time for social gathering outdoors after services must take a different shape. So we're transitioning into having a limited number of tables in the social hall that you may check out. But please observe some physical distancing. This week, our SCRIP program, the Fair Trade Coffee, Tea, and Chocolate folks are there, and the UUAA bookstore, which is going out of business. They're having a clearance sale this week and next week. And what about our coffee and donuts? For now, no coffee or drinks will be served in the social hall, and the donuts are to go, and you can pick one up on your way out after the service. As we move deeper into our worship hour, we will, through words and music and story and silence, bring our attention to our place in the incredible interdependent web of life, especially thinking about our place in the natural world and how our actions or inactions will determine the future of this planet and the world we leave to our children. It's easy to feel the situation is hopeless, but I prefer to take the words of the environmental activist Greta Thunberg to heart. She said, "Once we start to act, hope is everywhere." One part of this congregation's 2050 vision plan is committed to focusing on climate justice. A very dedicated team has prepared for an event this afternoon, our very first gathering table, and this is a virtual table. You're invited and encouraged to pull up a chair via Zoom. And you may have already registered, pre-registered, that's wonderful, but it's not too late, and you can register now, right after the service, so you can attend this afternoon. All ages are welcomed to this interactive event, and it begins at 2:30. The team has also collaborated with Spiritual Growth and Development on a climate justice-focused curriculum. And today, the youth are writing their own covenants with the earth. So if you are here in person, after each service, there are activities, information, and some giveaways at a real table in the social hall. Gathering table members will be there to answer questions and help you register for the event. So I encourage you to stop by and check that out. Make the commitment to climate justice. Commit to action. Maybe it's your first or maybe it's small, but together, this is how we create hope. This country holds November 11 as a day of recognition and remembrance of veterans, those who have served this country in the military. This is a day that can give rise to complex feelings. We can honor and respect and thank those who have served and are serving, even if we are opposed to war or military action. Next week, our Social Justice Connection will highlight the UUAA Veterans for Peace group and give us even more insight into these complexities. The chalice, as a symbol of this faith tradition, came to us from a time of war. An Austrian artist, Hans Deutsch, created the flaming chalice logo for the Unitarian Service Committee, who during World War II worked to rescue and move to safety those facing persecution from the Nazis. Beth, if you would help us light the chalice this morning. Each time we light the chalice, we embody the commitment to justice that the Unitarian Service Committee deeply believed in. We remember that as Unitarian Universalists, our actions can change the world and move us all closer to peace and freedom. Will you speak the chalice lighting words together with me? We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Beth. Our covenant words remind us of how we want to be in relationship with each other, but they also remind us that service is an essential part of this congregation's life. Today, with a focus on climate justice and our place in the larger web of life, may we keep the idea of service foremost in our minds. If you would join me together in speaking the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. At the beginning of last month, we heard from Beth Hosparaduk about this year's Stewardship Campaign. You may remember that your pledges make up 90% of the budget, and the new budget year starts in 7 weeks. And Beth is here to give us an update on how we're doing. Beth?
Morning. Well, in my greatest hope, I could stand here and tell you we raised all the money we need and we're done, but alas, that is not the case. But I do believe that we can all agree that we are in a very difficult and uncertain times. Change is everywhere about us. This applies to us as a congregation as well. I imagine this is a message you have been hearing lately in so many areas of your lives. Those of you with children are entrenched in the emotion of keeping them safe until they can be vaccinated. I was filled with love this last week as my 5-year-old grandson got his first shot on Thursday. One step closer to normal. Those of you who don't have school-age kids might be worrying about family members or even yourselves. I'm with you on all of that. Here at UUAA, we are in the midst of becoming a fully functional for multimodal services. That's hard to say. You know, we're online. Let's say it that way. Last Sunday, I was not able to attend in person, and I was so thankful that I could attend from home. It is always one of the most meaningful services to me, remembering and naming those who have left us over the past year. And I felt 100% connected to this congregation, my beloved community. I guess this is one of the positive gifts the pandemic has given us, and I hope that our online service is a comfort to all of you who are watching from home. However, obtaining the equipment we need does come at a cost. We are currently using equipment on a short-term loan, and identifying volunteers and training them takes time. We are also in the midst of reimagining what our SGD program might look like, as well as our music program. in this new reality. I have recently joined the SGD committee, and I know firsthand how much our director of SGD, Stella Anderson, and our volunteer teachers are putting into planning for our youth. How to provide the best program that we are known for while keeping everyone safe is doable, but very stressful. We will need to accommodate whatever reality might eventually mature. At the same time, Vision 2050 is underway, and as Theresa mentioned, we have the gathering table this afternoon, and I hope that you will join. In spite of all that change, we continue to move forward on the path that we have collectively chosen. And in the midst of all of this uncertainty and planning, we are running our pledge campaign to fund our basic operations, so we are actually able to do all of this, or any of it. As of today, at the beginning of our 7th week of the campaign, the pledges we have received are strong. Many have increased their pledge, but we have heard from only about 45% of you who have pledged in the past. For those, you deserve a huge thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time, finding a spot to sit down and consider what this congregation means to you, and filling out the form, sending the email, etc. Obviously, though, we cannot continue anything close to our present level of operations with this level of support. I want to share with you some good news, some good things being done through our social justice work that can only happen because we are a religious community. These are by no means the only things going on, but I hope that you can see the importance of financially supporting UUAA with your annual pledge. Our restorative justice group applied for and received a $4,500 grant from the National Association of Community and Restorative Justice. This money will provide scholarships for returning citizens to be trained as facilitators in working with the incarcerated and those who have been harmed. This grant would not have been possible without the support of UUAA as a 501c3 organization. $500 of our own budget has been approved to go directly to formerly incarcerated individuals when they return to society for items as simple as a winter coat or a computer, things that we all take for granted. Over the last 2 years, more than $42,000 has been donated through our monthly Sharing the Collection, and in 2020 we were able to donate over $31,000 using the interest income from our Jackson Social Welfare Fund. Together, these funds went to 29 different community partners in need. And none of this money is our pledge budget money. I share this because, first, I love to share the good work of this community, but I also want you to realize that by supporting UUAA, you are supporting a generous and giving community that stands up for justice. We know for a fact that we can do more when we do it together than when we do it alone. Now, I realize everyone is operating on a semi-fog COVID time, but I think you will agree that trying to plan for a future of congregational operations with so many new variables is even more difficult and stressful, if the funding is such a potential variable as well. So as a very active member of this congregation for over 30 years, including many, many pledge drives, I'm asking you to take a break from COVID time and make your pledge today. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Tuesday. But certainly this coming week, we will begin reaching out to folks as a little nudge and a reminder very soon. You can make your pledge online. There is a box on UUAA.org in the upper right where you can make this happen. If you are on Realm, you can do it there. And also, while on Realm, you could check to see if you're current with your payments for this year's pledge. Or you can email our forever interim administrator, Ed Lynn, at ed@uuaa.org, and let him know your pledge. Speaking of Ed, with full funding, we will be able to help him retire from his 6-year volunteer job by hopefully hiring a paid administrator If that's not enough to motivate you, I don't know. Anyway, as you can imagine, staff and volunteers have a lot of additional work as we navigate our way through living with a pandemic, and a substantial amount of uncertainty remains. You can directly help them to reduce that uncertainty today by making your pledge. You know, you don't have to be a member to pledge, I want to point out. You don't have to be a member to pledge. If you give money every week, make it a pledge. We need everyone if we are to make it through this together. So as we enter the season of being thankful, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much, Beth. As Beth pointed out, there is so much that we can accomplish when we work together, and that's especially true for our work with climate justice. And so as we move deeper into our time of reflecting on climate justice, I want to share a beautiful book written by Carole Lindstrom and illustrated by Michaela Goad. It's called We Are Water Protectors. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body, as it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land, spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they foretold that it wouldn't come for many, many years. But now the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together to stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy, but we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes, the earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, tracks down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nokomis told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. So we stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth, and our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in for the fight of its life. the end. Since this book was published in 2020, there have been some important and exciting developments. In June of this year, the energy company that wanted to build Keystone XL announced that it was halting the pipeline project. This was in response to a decade-long fight by indigenous activists, ranchers, and environmental activists, along with President Biden's decision in January to rescind the cross-border permit granted by the Trump administration. While this is good news, the Dakota Access Pipeline, which began production in 2017, is still moving 570,000 barrels of oil a day across sacred land. The energy company that built it is now trying to double its capacity, despite the many leaks and safety violations it's had over the past 4 years, and despite the fact that it has been operating illegally since a federal judge revoked its permit last year. Activists continue the legal battle to get an unbiased environmental review completed, and they continue to build awareness about the threat they face every day. The author of this book, Carole Lindstrom, is Anishinaabe Métis, and in her author's notes she writes, "There is an Anishinaabe prophecy that speaks of 2 roads. One road is the natural path. It leads to global peace and unity that embraces the sacred relationship between humanity and all living things. On this path, all orders of creation, mineral, plant, animal, human, are relatives deserving of respect and care. We are instructed to use our voices to speak for those who have not been given a voice. On this path, there is no black snake. The earth is not damaged. The grass grows lush and green." This prophecy, known as the 7 Fires prophecy, says that if humans choose the natural path, then we will proceed toward peace and unity and a healthy Mother Earth. The other road is described as a hard-surfaced highway where everything moves faster and faster at an unimaginable speed. In this path, humans embrace technological advancement with little regard for Mother Earth. Many Native nations believe this path is symbolized by the oil pipeline, the black snakes that crisscross our lands, bringing destruction and harm. This path leads to a damaged earth, and this prophecy is coming to life right before our eyes. The author is right that we are seeing the prophecy come to life, and we have been for many years. But there is still a chance for humanity to choose a different path. As the win against the Keystone XL pipeline reminds us, there is hope when people come together. This is why we've chosen to address climate justice as part of our community's Vision 2050 priority areas. And we're already known in this community for our work on climate justice. We're known for our solar panels, our wind turbine, and our 40 acres of beautiful land with trails open to all. But there is still so much work to be done. If you want to be part of this work and support the many ministries and programs of this congregation, you can donate by texting 73256 to UUAA. You can also go to uuaa.org/giving or drop your donations in the basket as you leave today. But however you give, thank you for your generosity and for being part of a better way forward together. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able, and join me in saying the words of dedication. Together let us say, to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these our offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
I've got tears like a raindrop. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. Water, rains, rivers, lakes, oceans. Water might be the first thing that comes to mind if I ask you to imagine nature. But what else? What else comes to mind? Trees, mountains, sunrises, deserts, snow. I will guide us through a meditative time that will end with some moments of silence. So if you are comfortable, you may close your eyes. You may sit in whatever way makes you feel most grounded. And if for you that means standing or moving about, that's okay. And focus your thoughts. Can you recall a particular place or object in nature that has personal meaning for you? Perhaps you are lying on the sand near a lake in northern Michigan, in a clearing in the pine forest, in mid-August under a clear night sky at the peak of the meteor showers. Or perhaps you're holding a perfectly shaped stone you picked up on the shore of Lake Superior that nestles in your palm as if it were made just for you. I'll let you in on a secret. Those are two of my imaginings. What is that place like for you? If I could see the thought bubbles above each of your heads, I would be delighted that each image is unique. It carries special meaning just for you. Maybe it is from the recent past or the very distant past. What is that place or thing for you? Maybe you have more than one image in mind, but now give even more focused attention to just one place or object. What do you feel? Is there heaviness or lightness, coarse or smooth sensations, cold or warmth? What do you hear? Does a particular sound envelop you? Or is it utterly still? Even in the quietest of places, we can hear our breath, our beating hearts. Do you taste or smell anything specific? What is it? What's it like? Remember, these are all points on a continuum. Where do your sensations fall? Let yourself settle further into the place you are imagining. How do you feel? At peace? Or uneasy? Alone? Deeply connected? Do you feel the mystery and great beauty of the natural world? Can you invoke love as you hold a few more moments of silence?
Thank you for the gift of that music. There are very, very few things that would motivate me to drive on the Massachusetts Turnpike during rush hour. There's a reason that drivers in Massachusetts have a bad reputation and a nickname that I cannot say from the pulpit. But on this particular cold fall day, I was willing to brave the traffic because I had been invited to work with an organization called Mothers Out Front. It was a group of parents in Massachusetts who were mobilizing to work on climate justice together. The group used a house party model for organizing, so I was going to my first party to see how it all worked. Needless to say, I was very relieved to get off the turnpike and finally turn into the host house in a suburb of Boston. Once inside, I found the kitchen packed with mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and a few fathers, all nervously making small talk while sipping their drinks. I grabbed my own drink just in time for the host to ask everyone to gather in the living room. We sat in a circle and waited for what I assumed would be some combination of speeches and PowerPoint presentations. I had been active in the climate justice movement for many years at that point, so I knew the talking points pretty well, and I knew all the terrifying statistics by heart. But the doom and gloom never came. Instead, the host invited us to go around the circle and say our names, the names of the children in our lives, and then tell a personal story about why we were motivated to work on climate justice. So one by one, people told stories about growing up next to a particular river that shaped their childhood, or working in the garden with their grandmother, or experiencing the spiritual powers of the red rocks in the Southwest, or feeling connected to the forest that they walk in every day. When it was my turn, I had a hard time narrowing it down to just one story, but I talked about the magic and wonder I felt as a teenager, backpacking through the Hoh rainforest and collecting rocks on the beach in Washington state. Like everyone else, I talked about how the children in my life were the main motivators for me. I wanted them and all future generations to experience the same magic and wonder that I had had the gift of experiencing. I wanted them to not just have a livable planet, but a flourishing planet. As we went around the circle sharing, there were many, many tears and many moments of shared joy. It felt like deeply sacred space, which is not what I was expecting at a house party. When the sharing ended, the host briefly described how Mothers Out Front worked and how we could get involved, and then the formal part was over. So we moved back into the kitchen to eat, drink, make connections, sign up for future events and volunteer roles. The room was abuzz with excitement and possibility. After that night, I went on to do communications work for them until I moved back to Michigan, and I loved the work we did together. But now, fast forward to this year. Life has already been intense, both personally and globally, these last few years. And then we had a global pandemic on top of all of it. I've felt overwhelmed and powerless and frustrated at times. I've watched the predictions that climate scientists made decades ago come true in real time, plus in many cases being worse than originally predicted. I've watched politicians and institutions continue to drag their feet even as the urgency grows. I've heard many people in my circles who previously joked about preppers being ridiculous, now saying that they are giving up and shifting to preparing for doomsday scenarios. One thing that was still giving me hope, though, was the fact that our beloved community had made climate justice, anti-racism and anti-oppression work, and radical welcome our top 3 priorities for our Vision 2050 work. This is work I believe in, and I know us well enough to know that we are already doing it and can do more. I wanted to bring the same passion that I felt all those years ago, sitting in a circle of strangers, to our work together now. But I have to admit, I have been struggling at times. Then one day recently, I found myself listening to a podcast where the host interviewed the environmental activist Paul Hawkins about his new book entitled Regeneration: Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation, which is a pretty catchy title, gets your attention pretty quickly. And I was so captivated by his interview that I listened to it twice, and then listened to other interviews with him, and then dove into the book itself. His book lays out a vision for an inclusive regeneration movement that addresses both imminent and future needs. By regeneration, he means actions that bring the earth back to life. Because as he puts it, when you bring the earth back to life, you bring yourself back to life. You bring your family and friends back to life. The book is filled with scientific solutions and powerful ideas. But there are two ideas that stood out in particular for me. The first one is about how change happens. Some climate activists predicted decades ago that humans wouldn't really respond to climate change until it started affecting their daily lives. And they were right. The human brain is just not wired to deal well with future existential threats, especially if people are just trying to get through day-to-day living. But now that the weather is rapidly changing and causing destruction, people are starting to wake up. For example, some of my family members and acquaintances who previously scoffed at the idea of solar panels and upgrading the grid started changing their tune when they were among the thousands of Michiganders, myself included, who lost power for days or even more than a week during the windstorm this summer. Will humans make enough changes fast enough to save ourselves? Well, we can't predict the future, so of course we don't know. But we can look through history and see that in times of crisis, humans have been capable of changing on a dime. We did it when we mobilized rapidly during World War II, and we did it recently with the global shutdown in response to the pandemic and the creation of multiple COVID vaccines in an unthinkable time frame. We also know from social psychology that people are more likely to change when the people around them change, which is why Hawkins believes that we have to shift our focus away from the top and the bottom to the middle. He points out that so often the climate movement has focused either on changing individual actions, the bottom, or changing institutions and policies, the top. But of course, while those are both important, when you only focus on individual actions, it can be frustrating because we know that doing things like changing our light bulbs and taking shorter showers is important, but it's also not sufficient to the task at hand. And we know that changing institutions and policies is important, but it can be frustrating when they move so slowly or not at all. So the key isn't going from the ground up or the top down, it's going from the middle out. It's not me or them, it's us. And by us, he means people working together in their local communities, their schools, their churches. By us, he means us. Exactly the kinds of things we're doing here at UUAA, like the gathering table this afternoon. We're gathering our collective power and energy to make a difference, finding ways that we feel passionate about so that we can plug in and make a difference together. And we're doing this work within the context of a loving community that can sustain us when the work inevitably gets hard. We're well on our way, which fills me with hope. The second idea that Hawkins talks about is reverence. He challenges us to try putting life at the center of every act and decision, and then see what happens. It's such a simple idea, and yet it resonated deeply for me. I realized that so often I was centering fear of death and destruction rather than reverence for life in my climate justice work. Fear is a powerful motivator in the short term, but in the long term, it's demoralizing and exhausting. When we put life at the center, though, we tap into our natural love of the world, and we're reminded that we're part of the natural world too. That's what sharing our stories in a circle in Massachusetts really did for us. It put life in the center again. It helped us transform our love for special places and people from a feeling into a verb. As Unitarian Universalists, of course, we already revere life and put that reverence into our 7th principle, which affirms our respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And yet Hawkins' phrase, "put life at the center," helped me to take this big, important principle and translate it into a simple daily practice. Suddenly, I found myself feeling energized to make ecological choices again, simply by asking questions like, is this purchase really putting life at the center? Is this habit putting life at the center? Am I teaching my kids to put life at the center? I know that in many ways, working with our local communities and putting life at the center of every act can seem too simple to truly make a difference in the face of such a massive crisis. And yet these ideas are ultimately about creating more connections. As Hawkins points out, global warming is caused by a profound disconnection. Disconnections between humans, disconnections between humans and nature, and the ways that humans are fragmenting and disconnecting nature itself through the disruption of ecosystems. He says that, quote, "Regeneration is very much about repairing, putting these broken strands together with the knowledge that we know scientifically that the way you heal a system is to connect more of it to itself, whether it's an ecosystem, an immune system, or a social system. In other words, all the pieces and parts are there, and we've just got to reconnect them." There is a joke amongst ministers that each of us really only has one sermon in us, and we just preach that same sermon in different ways throughout our lives. I think there's some truth in that, and for me, that one sermon would be about the importance of connection, because it's in our connections that we find wholeness, and it's in our wholeness that we find strength. We don't know what's going to happen in the years to come, but we do know that anything is possible when we tap into that collective strength. May we do that together, here and now. Blessed be.
Accept all the one in
invite you to rise as you are willing and able. As we go forth into the gathering table this afternoon and into the week ahead, I want to share the words of Carolyn McDade, who wrote the song you just heard, Rising Green. She writes this about the song. Earth shakes out a mantle of green, each blade of grass true to the integrity within. Yet together with others is the rise of spring from winter's urging. Our coming is with the grass, the common which persists unexalted. Our humanness, our rhythms and dreams, the faith which nurtures our ardent love and hope for life. All this we share with our earth community, of which we are natural and connected beings. May we rise green to bring a new day. May we rise stronger together. May it be so, and blessed be.